Can you hear me all right? Okay. I'm Mike Cramton. I'm a Scorpio with an Aquarian moon and a Gemini rising, so we get all that out of the way in a hurry, okay? And we're going to talk about stelliums today. I'm filling in for somebody. I don't remember what it was about anymore, but anyway. To define a stellium, Nicholas DeVore's encyclopedia, he defines a stellium as a group of 5 or more planets in a house. And in an angle, they can portend great changes, good or bad. Don't forget, a stellium is a rain or shine people. Anytime you see a group of planets in one place, you know as the aspects come across, it's going to be everything wonderful if you've had a trine. Oh, you just got sunshine all over the place. And if it's a square, you've just been rained on, but good. So, you follow me? We've got an alternative here all the time. These people, as I say, they're rain or shine. So you have to remember that it will be spectacular in any direction because you have so many planets. And remember, there has to be 5 planets or more, and that includes usually the lights, plus 3 usually. I haven't done this talk in a long time, so I was called up this morning, told it, so that's why I'm looking at it. If you have a stellium in Leo and Mars is there, you know the person has a motor running and is at home with action. You have to remember, go back to your basics of what rules what. I was taught that a chart never lies. The interpretation can be wrong, but the basic elements are still there. If the client denies what you're saying to him, just drop it. There isn't any point in pursuing anything, and any of you that have any experience with people know quickly when the shade is drawn. We use everything we can to help us, to help others, to understand ourselves, because that's basically what astrology is about. The other thing, of course, is always a timing device. There's a time to do things, there's a time to leave them alone. And that's what we're doing. Everything must be explored. The stellium is a quick revelation in astrology. We've defined a stellium, but now we're going to talk about it in a little different way. It's what I call a closed circuit. It's boxed in one house, or it's often 2 adjoining houses. You have all your weight. Mainly they're like, because you have Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus often involved. So these people are usually likable, and they're always usually in a close degree. They often have the common denominator, determining of Sun, Mercury, Venus, this sort of thing. The stellium in Virgo will often contain Mercury, and that would be the focal point. You hear about focal points. So you look at what planet rules what, and if it's in your stellium, you know it's going to be the focal point of the reflection of the action. A stellium, I go through the houses because I find this is easier, and it's the way I like to be taught when I began. So I'm going to do the same thing for you. A stellium in the first house is a very private person whose main concern is me and mine. They have blocks. All stelliums have blocks. So it's difficult to get through to them. Have any of you got a stellium in the first? None of them. Repressed might be another word. Well, we got to look at both, because you're going to have a little different connotation from 12 than you do in the first. Don't estimate any force. Anytime you've got a stellium, you've got a force. And anytime you've got it in the first house, they are private. They're going to invite you or have you do what they want you to do, or they're not going to let you through. That's all there is to it. So you have to watch it. It's a first house. It's a personal thing. First house is always person. These people, I have a friend that's got this, and she is very interesting from the standpoint that hers is in Virgo, and so she operates off of her store, and I want you to know if you walk in that store and she isn't in a good mood that day, you might as well leave, because she's going to bite you in two. She don't want you there. And she'll let you know it, believe me. Second house, of course, the obvious. Money is all important. Possessions, their self-worth. And they will not do without it. Remember that. This is a stellium. They will not do without money. It is vital. Their self-worth image has to go first class. They want to go that way. They're not unafraid to work, but they'll pick an occupation that will make money. I have a client with this who's in the antique business, auctions, this type of thing. But it has to be to make money. Stellium in the third will have emotional problems. They're family-oriented. They're great bookkeepers. You often find the stellium here. When you see it, you can almost tell they're going to be involved with bookkeeping or so forth. Their emotional outlet is going to be through mental occupations. And the safety of the family and its protection. They are often the ones that take care of their family. They're certainly always involved. If you see Mercury there and it has a square to 12, these people have fears. You'll often find them afraid. Are these things clear to you? The fourth, of course, is often connected to the third because we're back to the family, the home. And the home will be vital. But often an outsider doesn't feel very welcome. He has to be invited, believe me. Their home is exclusive to their selection. And don't visit them unless you're invited. And of course, your angles are always vital. So these are sensitive areas of change in our life. And they must have planets that will be much more vital to these areas of your life. You notice this when anything comes across those angles in the transits or the progressions. These angles will bring things to focus. Your 1, 4, 7, and 10 will always bring you the axis point, the cross. The ones in between are how we adjust and what we do with them. The fifth, they're children, youth-oriented. Counselors, education is important, investment geniuses, if it's unafflicted, of course. They like to go, they like to travel, fun and games are in. They also seem to have a need to gamble. Now, this isn't necessarily, it can be gambling per se, but it can also be gambling in terms of ideas. They like to express thoughts because it is the house of our creativity. Whether it's children or ideas, creativity goes either way. They like to try new ventures. If you have planets in the 9th, you'll see a trine and they might like to take a chance on a foreign venture. This type of thing. This, of course, we're getting into some aspects, but it's nice to know. A stellium in the 6th is obvious, of course. They're work-oriented, serious. Rulers of this house, often in the 2nd or the 10th, bear this out. And it also shows the motive for your work from the 6th house. Health, of course, is involved. They can be the health nuts. They're obsessed with exercise, food, this type of thing. And of course, extra stress would be if it is in Virgo. Look for the signs. They're going to emphasize what is important. Taurus would be money, good food, etc. Look at your signs to see what you're looking for. As you can tell already, I'm a Reader's Digest lecturer, so you're going to get things in a simple, concise form. I don't elaborate a great deal. I feel there are elaborations but I'm trying to give you the thought to make you think and go with it. But at least you got the basis of what these things are. The 7th, we're going to deal with other people. You're socialist. You're social. You can be a catalyst or a fighter. With Mars in there, my God, you're going to go out there and fight for your rights. Also, Mars in there can let the partner use their energy. Opposite the first, they're going to let them do it. They may be pushing them, you understand, but nevertheless. As the Western part of the chart is fate, these people often don't cause their problems. They're caused by somebody else. That doesn't mean you can't goof up the world, you understand, and how you handle it, but you often are not the cause of the problem. I have a chart almost entirely on the Western, so all my life I'm dealing with somebody else's. That doesn't mean I can't goof it up good, but generally I haven't created it. Somebody's bringing me something and I'm looking at it and I think, well, how do I handle this mess? You know, I got to go from here. Come on in if you want to. I don't have the foggiest. I'm filling in for somebody, so I'm presuming. So you have to remember that these are the people that are going to be doing things that somebody else has created the moment you find it on the side of the chart. The 8th house is our desires. High emotionalism. Strong goals. When you see Mars in the 8th at any time, these people are goal-oriented people. They can be psychic or spiritual. I have a couple of nuns with a stellium in the 8th house. Goals are always vital. If you add Mercury square Neptune, they can't decide anything. They just use emotions or feelings, which are the 8th house. Sex, of course, is going to be vital. This is an important place, and somehow. When it's closed, they can't be alone here. Saturn in the 8th will often handle group resources, so you're dealing with banks or insurance company or whatever. Do you follow me? Again, the stellium adds the emphasis. You have to remember that. Your 2 is your self-worth, your 5 is your creativity, 8 is what we want, so it's sex. We're moving to the other, and all of these are the emotional houses. The 9th, these are wonderful. I love 9th house stelliums. They just blow me away. Everything is wonderful to them. Did you ever notice everything's wonderful? You couldn't tell them anything wrong. I had a man with a 9th house stellium, and he came to me, and I'm looking at Saturn coming across, squaring that mess, and I said to him, Neptune, and I said to him, would you please be careful? You're about to be had. Oh, no. He said, Mike, there just is no way. He said, everybody around me is wonderful. When he declared bankruptcy, I think he found out a little differently. And they never admit anything is wrong. Just simply wrong. And they're always learning something. They're always into something when you're in the 9th house. They have wonderful examples to show you they are right. They have strong drives and aspirations, but they're unaware of other people. It always comes back to them. Government workers, bright, but again different, emotional, they have to be important when you start getting up there towards the midheaven. In the 10th, we're in the public eye. We're image conscious. TV, radio, government, military. They can use important people for personal gain. They like to run things. Moon in the mid always is a do-your-own-thing people. You know, they're out there running the show. First house will do this, too. Their public image is vital. And the box, again, of course, is self-image. They have to be center stage. Even if shock will get that attention. You notice this with Leo in the midheaven. You often find your dramatics, your stars, this type of thing, where you have emphasis in the minute. They like to be on stage. The 11th, they have to prove themselves. They're secretive about their private lives. They seem to be workers. Saturn there, what does it Till says? The need for love in the 11th. Always have a friend or friends to help them. Any of you have 11th house stellium? They're wonderful. Somebody always comes along and rescues you. Somebody always is there to help you. About the time, and a lot of times they don't do it themselves, but somebody comes along with, there's the kind of person that somebody comes along and says, hey, I'll set you in business. This is 11th house. They have to be busy, and they often have to deal with the public. Am I right? Wasn't there another one here somewhere? No? I have 2 clients with this in Cancer. And here you find what? The chronic complainer. Yet it's always wrong. They're in business themselves. Somebody set them up with them. Sometimes I think Cancer's like that anyway. The 12th, they need people to escape from themselves. They often have hidden psychological problems. They, of course, are the problem, and they are the maker of the problem. But if you've ever worked with anyone with a 12th house stellium, God help you to try to convince them. It's going to be somebody else, believe me. You're using both, 12 and 1. So you're going to handle it differently than the person with a total 12. I have a lady with 8 planets in her 12th house, and I'm telling you, I can talk till I'm green. And she'll end it with, but he. And we're right back where we started. Spinning my wheels, huh? Leo, married to a Scorpio, if you think that wasn't a time bomb. And him with 3 zeros, who is living also in the past areas of security. And Leo, who is going to work on the credit card system, Often they find and blame the mother and father. You find this often in, because they're using the past. This is our subconscious. This is the past from the 12th house. And they blame the parent for their attitudes. That might be a better way to put it. But don't forget, the problem is hidden from them too, because you still got the 12th house. We sum up stelliums, as I say, they're boxed in. They're rain or shine. They're not always liked, depending on where it comes, because you all know if you've got the moon in the 12th, you're not always well liked. You've got a hidden quirk there that's going to use somebody else to do some things, and all of us subconsciously know it and resent it. But they have lots of acquaintances, they have lots of people, they have emotional problems, sexual problems, or excess are always in stelliums. You always have a problem to deal with. There is no way out of it. I have never met one. You find the alcoholic here, you find the guy that's the workaholic, because you're using it to get out of the box. So once you understand it, you begin to look at it. They take medicine. Same type of thing. Probably to escape. You find me? Always to get out. Or they get sick. They use the other method. Actually get sick to escape. Neptune in the first, you will often find it, they'll have controlled invalidism. Haven't you seen the people? Oh, I'm sick today, I can't do that. Look for a stellium, look for Neptune. He's going to use it for a way out. As I say, I'm sort of a, what do you call it here? I'm an ordinary astrologer. I'm a bread and butter, traditional astrologer. I go back to the old things and the signs, so the way I do them is just like I've been doing, and this time we'll take them through the signs. Okay? Yes. Oh, there will be at least 3 more planets besides the Sun, Moon, Mercury, or whatever. The traditional ones will all... See, Mercury and Venus are often very close to the Sun. So you have to have 5, 6 planets in there. Yes. No. In fact, I have often thought about it. I really haven't checked it out, but I think that when you see them in one house... See, I'm a weird astrologer to begin with, because I set up a chart, and if you have Cancer here, 24 degrees, and you have the moon at 4, you're going to have trouble with me, because I leave it at 4. I do not move it back here except mentally. So it makes for a wild thing when I have to read a chart, or anyone else's chart, because all of you have been taught that you carefully write moon 4, Cancer back here. I don't see any purpose to it. And I'll tell you why. I'm digressing. I do this in my life. But it belongs in the 2nd house, because it's going to be your attitude about money. Now, what you're doing with it is back here in the 1st, perhaps. Are you with me? So I just leave it there. I can tell the numbers aren't there and that it's going to move back and forth. Saves a lot of writing. But see, the moon in the 2nd is going to be an entirely different thing. Do any of you do this? Do any of you do it that way? It's just easier for me. I know that the moon in the 2nd are going to either buy or not buy. I've got it there. I've got Cancer on the 2nd. I don't have the moon there. But I'm either in the mood to buy or I'm not in the mood. And it moving back here from the 2nd to the 1st, what are you going to do? You're going to earn your living through your own initiative. You probably may go somewhere else, but I'm just talking about it from the standpoint of the way I'm putting it up. You're going to gain your living through your own initiative when you see something like this. So I know it's moving both ways. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? I mean, you know, if you don't, say so, because sometimes you're not clear. All right, back to stelliums in the signs. Did that answer your question? All right. Aries. They're bound to be classical. We got to be first. You know, it's the first sign of the zodiac. What do you want? Only here we got an added power of planets influence. And so they know how to use their planets to get what they want. They may not be planned. They can use intuition often, depending on the planets. But they get their own way. They manipulate. Let's put it that way. They can even put someone else down. Haven't you seen people like that? To make them look bigger. They're courageous, often foolhardy. You've got to remember, I'm a fundamentalist. You've got to go back to what Aries is. You've got to go back to the first. And he's got to be first, and he's got to be ahead of the pack, and it doesn't matter what his method is. When you've got that many planets in there, you can see where it's emphasis. You have more force, because that's what the planets are. In Taurus, here you find often the people in real estate, government position, where you see a lot of earth in a chart. You see these people in government or in real estate. Automatically, you know, they're also reliable because you got this powerhouse. So I have a man with, I don't know, 8 planets, I think, in the fixed houses. Well, you know he's got to be involved in real estate. These are just quick judgments that I look at a chart and you can tell. They've got to be involved in one or the other, and usually both, you know, because one thing works the other. They're often junk workers, bargainers, stubborn, love creature comforts, food, the soft chair, and getting someone else to wait on them. They can be charming. You got Venus, So you can con somebody into doing it to get what they want. They often have a high sex drive. They like music. Taurus is still the singer, or at least the throat. They often lectures or talkers, or music will be important. All your Venus signs are going to be involved with this. They like to dance. They often like sports. The need for Taurus is what? Status, financial status. Stay with your basics again. I'm doing pretty good for somebody who hasn't looked in this 5 years. Gemini. Here's your bright one. Nervous. Good heavens. They're neurotic sometimes. They, of course, are sharp-witted. They often have 2 careers. They're sharp-witted and they use it to manipulate. Remember, you got a stellium here. And they get theirs not so much to get them to do it, but to do it their way. They use the tongue and the mind for weapons. However, of course, you know what they say about Gemini in the first place. Sometimes they're even logical. So they're often changeable. And perhaps fear if afflictions are bad. And also these can be the alley cats of the zodiac when you got a stellium here. They gotta have stimulation, mental stimulation generally, because it is Gemini. Cancer. Oh dear, here's their sensitive one. You know, the pity party people of the universe. Always pleasant because it's moon, sympathy oriented because of emotions, and because they're ruled by the moon, of course. They're detail people. They can be very good at details. They're good administrators, home oriented, enjoy social life. They're mother oriented. They enjoy social life if you go where they want you to go. Cancer, don't forget, is the crab. He moves inside and out. So if you've ever tried to convince one of something when he doesn't want to, he simply closes you out. You can forget the whole thing. And you get a stellium there, and you have said, my husband doesn't have a stellium, but he's a good Cancer. And if I make the mistake of saying, if he's coming out and he says, is this tie all right? And if I'm stupid enough to say, well, why don't you change to a blue one? I've just ruined my evening. Forget the whole thing, because he's just, we moved back in the shell, and we aren't going to hear any more as far as logic is concerned, because, see, you're dealing now with the emotion. And the need for Cancer, of course, they want a home base. They aren't necessarily home-oriented in the ordinary context that we think of Cancer. They like to go. They like to do things. It's a cardinal sign. But they want a base. You know, they got to have that string that attaches them. They may go around, but the string has to be at home. Root system. Leo. Here's your playboy. Excess, they got to do everything to exercise. Good Leos are like that. They like variety. They have excess in their play. They have excess in their love. They like the good things in life. And they should have it. They're the sun sign. We're Leo the lion. Why shouldn't we? Let's have fun. They demand attention and they expect it. Temper. And quick, too, if you're wrong. How can the king be wrong? I mean, you're forgetting. Their need is approval, approbation. Got to have approval. You want to get along with a Leo? You approve. You have a stellium in there, you got more emphasis on the same things. Is this clear to you? Leo is the one that'll give you their shirts, and when they want it back, guess what? Provided immediately. Virgo. Virgo usually, and especially with a stellium, will assume too much responsibility. And of course, with typical Virgo thing, they'll turn it into a duty. And I got news for you. If you've ever worked with one, and you see a stellium, you do it like they do it, and like they've always done it. Don't change it. You've just went into a time bomb. They often have photographic mind. Very good at details, because they don't miss anything. They're critical, analytical, can be cruel, and can also be very, very kind. Again, we're back to aspects, but you have an emphasis on these things. They can be sadistic or masochistic. I think their need with the stellium is to be fine, because these people have it easy. You follow me? They don't do anything. The average man trying is just going to sit there happily smiling and go his own way. When he hits a square, what does he do? He cries. Now you got a stellium. So you got rain or you got shine, depending on the aspects. Pluto's coming up to his little number. Neptune's coming up. Now, of course, they're social planets, so they're going to, it's a whole nother talk, but anyway, this is going to affect us in terms of where we are in the world we live in. But remember, anytime you see a stellium, you find someone addicted to something. Cigarettes, if you like, alcohol, soap, maybe overwork. But they've got a problem. And you have to watch, especially if you see it in your children. For heaven's sakes, if you can't do it any other way, scare them out of drugs or escape mechanisms, because it is tough to deal with. It is. Any question?
Now, I have my stellium from the 9 into the 10. Half and half.
Mm-hmm. You're going to look at the world the way you want it. And try to put it that way. Uh-huh. You're easier to live with than most of them. Yeah.
I have a client who's a very successful businessman. He's a Pisces.
Oh, yeah.
Most people, think that Pisces are very non-competitive. And it's true what you say.
Oh, I never saw Pisces in my life. Now, if they're losers, my granddaughter will quit playing. She was this big. We played for cheesy. If she wasn't winning, guess what? We were switching to cards or whatever. Oh, give me that. I know what they do.
This is so strange. He plays so low-key. And in business negotiations, he's talking with him. He comes out his head off the title. I understand. They don't say it, but they say it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he's in business, greedy, his associates feel as if he's no threat. But when the wartime comes, he gets the award of, Public Relations Man of the Year for the state of Florida. He's gotten it about, I think, 12 or 13 times.
And the rest are looking around thinking,
And,
why?
What happened? I mean, wow, who won? And
Haven't you ever noticed there's a sub? There's an aggressiveness.
oh yeah, so subtle.
Oh, man.
They call it sneaky, but this I think is very true. I think I found that.
And of course, many of them I have discovered of these. Well, Leo does this, and Pisces does this. These are the two signs that I've noticed the most. And I think we all do it in some degree. But have you ever noticed they tell you what they want you to know? Never tell you the whole story. It isn't until later that I found out the rest, and I'm doing my screaming number. Why didn't you tell? Got all my sympathy, Pisces. Poor child is being abused. I've learned. I just... it's just funny. You just stay away from it until you find out the whole story. It's just inevitable. You and the blue over there wanted to say something? Scorpio doesn't do it that way. Scorpio doesn't tell you in the first place. He doesn't tell you part of it. He just isn't going to tell you anything. Yeah, I will never lie to you for the simple reason I can't remember. You follow me? But I just won't tell you anything. Yeah. No, if I don't want you, I'm not going to lie to you because, see, to me, that's a half-truth. And see, I trapped myself in it. I would remember and later guess who's in up to here.
I was wondering, have you made any studies on if some of the planets are retrograde or one or the other retrograde in the stellium? Does it have a special...
Well, each planet retrograde has its own meaning, of course, and it switches. Remember again, I think I gave part of a talk that I had yesterday on retrogrades, and you have to remember, it's a wrong word, frankly. I don't know why. Maybe this will make it easier for you. It did for me. Once it got through my thick head that retrograde didn't mean anything, but reverse did. It does the reverse of what it was doing before. If it's Mercury, what are you going to do? What do we do when Mercury goes retrograde every 100 days? We get emotional. People look at me and here, especially, and I say to them, gee, Mercury's retrograde, don't buy anything. You're not buying anything under... It's usually unimportant. Well, you've got a lot of women here. Haven't you all gone out during the retrograde Mercury at some time in your life and bought a dress, and a couple of weeks later you're going out, and you go get that dress out, and you look at it and you think, my God, did I buy that thing? That's what it does. It isn't important. But I always tell my clients, for God's sake, don't buy a car. You just bought the lemon of the age. So they are important. Mars, what are you doing? When Mars goes retrograde, your energy goes inside. They can be mean. Venus can be tough as shoe leather when she's retrograding. Saturn, you're going to change your business or how you do it. I mean, we're just... And see, they're going to do the same thing in the stelliums. You got to look at what they're doing then in terms of conjunct. But you know, the biggest advantage, all right, to a stellium is you know where it's going to be, in what houses. You know if it's in the 10th house, you're going to get bombed in your reputation or your business or whatever, or it's going to be hallelujah, glory time. Do you agree with me? It's inevitable. It's all these one at a time in the charts that'll drive you to drink, you know, interpreting, because so often we have them at the same times. Of course, one mitigates the other. I've always thought the dual people do pretty good, if you've ever noticed, in the dual charts. That's any of the dual signs, Sag, Gemini, Virgo. They have two things, and often one offsets the other. I'm a dual person, so it helps. You know, I may have the roaring disaster of the universe this morning, but something nice might happen before the day is over. So it sort of balances a little bit.
You say if you have an opposition to that stellium, it's easier to live with.
Well, you got to look to that opposition. Man, oh man, that's old, what's his name's choo-choo train thing with the opposite point that's going to be the time bomb when something hits it. See, it's like a pendulum, see, and it'll get you if you don't watch. You got to watch them. I imagine you would have to. The biggest point to me to watch, you know, you're going to get it from either one of the angles, but the one to me would be the time bomb. Would be the one at the opposite end. You follow what I mean? That closes you in. You follow what I mean? You got it here. You see what I mean? Here, you got a planet here and a planet here, but you get up here. You just got trapped. Well, see, and you get it in that third, and guess what? You just got caught again. It's the same thing in any chart, if you've noticed. If you look at a T-square, I often, somebody will come and they've got one... we'll say Leo is the empty house, and they got a T-square coming from the other way. You can almost bet that August is going to be a pain on the times when those close in on you. Because you've got to... I'm always digressing. These are boxes. You got a planet here, a planet here, a planet here, and a planet here. They're closed crosses, cardinal, mutable, fixed. I have a name for them. I always think if there is anything to this karma and we pick these things, whoever picked that they would have to shoot me. It's running in place. Haven't you ever noticed? They go like mad, and they work like mad. And when they end up there in place, they're right where they started from. Might have a love affair till the world looks level and their business just went down the tube. It's just a balancing factor. You can't win, you can't lose. You gotta always stress this to a client. You're never gonna lose, because you always got a balancing factor. You just don't win. My shining example of that is a girl that called me one day, hysterical, 2 little kids, and she says to me, Mike, she said, my husband pays me $50 a month for the support of these 2 kids, and she said he called me yesterday and informed me that the law hadn't decreed that he had to pay me, and he was sick of paying it and wasn't going to pay it anymore. And she said, I left work last night and got fired, had a pink slip. 2 little kids to support, she's out of her mind. So I got her chart out and I looked at it, and it was Monday, I guess, or something, or Friday, I guess. And I said to her, well, wait till Wednesday and go on out. You'll get a job. You'll be all right. So she called me Wednesday night. She says, you'll never believe this. And I just thought it was wonderful. Here she is with a perfect cardinal cross. She got another job, and guess what? It had the other $50. No more, but she got her $50. So it's fun. Just watch them when you get something like that. Okay. Yes.
Back to the Stelliums.
Yes.
I don't have Stelliums. I've got some dukes in the 10th, and Mercury being a Pluto and the Node in the 9th. But those areas of my chart have been very busy.
I would believe you with Sun and Mars and Jupiter. Lady, you're a human dynamo. You gotta be. You're always out there doing something.
I've always had a busy life.
No, yeah. But that Jupiter keeps you protected awful good.
Yes.
That's nice. Okay, any other questions? I know we're way out of time, but I do this every time, so. Anything else you want me to talk about or want to ask? Yes? No more negative about the 12th than the others, except that they won't recognize it at all, ever. I don't think any of the stelliums do, really. But the 12th is, I think we need help. You need, personal opinion is spiritual help is about all you can get to move out of it. I would suggest psychiatric counseling, do you follow what I mean, to get you to understand, but my opinion of most of it is you're not going to look at it. You follow what I mean? So you're going to get beaten to death regardless. But I do think that the 12th house is still a spiritual house from the past. You might look at what you're doing. At any time, you can look at your 12th house to see what your lesson is to be learned. And it will manifest through the first. This is what you came for.
If the Stelliums intersect, does that intensify it even more?
It just makes you, now you're a closet drinker. Intercept house, as far as I'm concerned, is the closed area of your life. Any intercept. If it's in an intercept, it's still closed. Your emotional needs, perhaps, in an 8th house are going to be hidden, maybe even from you, but there are needs. Any of your intercepted closed houses, now you've got a double sign, you follow me, somewhere else where you've got it. This is where you can express. This is where we do express. Now you're getting ideas here, I'm sure you're not getting anywhere else, but these are what my 30 years of experience have taught me. You go to that double sign for expression. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Or you want me to show you on the board?
I do remember, this is just me talking for myself. I have all the things that you said about Aquarius, yes, but it's lately, since I'm in astrology, where I've helped some of the bad things to overcome.
Like anything else.
Yeah.
It's understanding. You begin to look at, that's all astrology's about. When you come to me, you get a rundown on yourself.
I don't think I've ever been as content and as happy with myself as I am right now.
Yeah, but you're also in a profession that you love. See, it's variety enough for you. If you'd been up there running an elevator, you'd have jumped out on the 3rd floor about the 3rd time up. You got to look at what you're doing. Okay, any questions? I'm sure I'm 30 minutes ahead. I always am. All right? Any questions? Anything else?
As long as you were talking retrograde a minute ago, you stopped in Saturn. What about Uranus retrograde? And you said,
I got into this yesterday, didn't I? I'm always into something. What do you want to know, Uranus? This is what happened to me yesterday. I got into this. See, these talks were done when they used to have them for 45 minutes. See, and so now I'm caught in this hour-and-a-half mess. Yeah, it's exactly what happened the other day. You want to run through the retrograde? Well, we'll do it. Dad, why not? Retrograde, of course, is always in reverse, as I told you. It's going to be different. We can start with Venus, if you like. You want to start with Venus? Okay. He's selfish and he's self-centered. That ought to stop you right there. And they pick losers. Can't you ever marry one? They got to pick them on top of everything else. Venus in Virgo does this. If any of you have ever noticed, they always pick somebody they got to improve. Can't you lose your mind? Or the unobtainable. Venus retrograde, you know, they're going to fall in love with the married man. You know, the unobtainable object. They overlook faults, or at least they accept the faults of their choices, so they have that too. And of course they're devious because you're going underground, any of your retrogrades. They're also lacking in simple gratitude. Do you ever notice a Venus retrograde never says thank you, please? And they're often inconsiderate of other people. Yeah.
Will that change when it goes direct?
Oh, sure.
Because what you just said, no way. And I got retrograde, but it went direct when I was 32. And all my life I've said thank you. I was taught that way. You're putting up with it, you know.
But it'll make a difference. There's no question about it. Oh, yeah. It's inevitable. And, you know, it manifests in different ways, you know. Yeah. And also, you often find the people, you know, we're all taught, most of us are taught to say thank you, but haven't you had a thank you in the terms of, well, I had that one coming? You know, that's all this road. They may have a poor self-image, so that's why they attach to less, see, for their personal build-up. It's the old opposite polarity. Remember, you got to define your planets. Venus is what we want, and retrogrades are always the opposite of the other thing. Love, sex is important, so they go after what they want. Mercury retrograde. Communication. They're probably one of the brightest in the zodiac. But my God, they can go totally emotional. There's no more reasoning with a Mercury retrograde if he's decided the other way. Look at it when Mercury goes retrograde. Every once in a while. Hey, do you ever see so many arguments in your life as when Mercury's retrograde? You know, you're talking to someone and my husband always says, you didn't tell me that. You know, and I think, maybe I didn't. Hell, but then I'm confused, you know? And sometimes things are said hurtfully where you see Mercury retrograde in the top. I think part of it is they're smarter and they have to show it a little bit. They're calculating. They often quote others. I have an astrologer that does what was the man that died? I've forgotten. The old man. No, old man. Always, anyway, she was his student. No, this is one of the old grandfathers of astrology. Hmm? No. No. He wrote 10,000 books. He used to come to the city because this woman did all of his lunar returns. No, I can't think of his name. I'll think of it before it's over. But anyway, you'd go sit in a class of hers. She held a class once, and I thought, gee, maybe she can explain him to me. He used to come and lecture, and I'd sit there. He had an unaspected Mercury, and I used to sit there and I'd think, what did he say? Never understood a word. Read the books the same way. You knew he knew. He just couldn't get it to me. Almost. You're close. He's in that era. He just died around the same time. Anyway, Rudger, however, had a whole different philosophy of astrology. His was philosophical. So. But anyway, they're secretive, they're private about their personal lives. You often can't understand their communication until you get to know them. What I was talking about the quoting was when we used to go and hear her talk. Mark Jones. Knew I'd think of it. Mark Edmund Jones. Huh? I'm sorry, I didn't. No, Mark Edmund Jones was the one. And I want you to know, I went to a class in hers, and what do you suppose she did? She quoted him through the whole thing. I didn't understand the book. I didn't understand him. Now I'm listening to quotes. I was right where I started from. Mercury retrograde. The woman was a lawyer, an astrologer. She was very bright. They can't get along well with another person with Mercury retrograde. They have abrupt manners of speaking. They can be very rude. They can shut out the world. So see, they can close their minds off. You can almost see them think. They have computer minds quite often. Now don't forget, you've got to balance this with aspects too. Mars. Mars retrograde, as far as I'm concerned, has no sense of priorities, whatever. They only do what they want to do, and when. They can have nasty tempers, nitpickers, because you have to do what they ask or say, and do it their way, of course. They have a sharp humor and lots of energy for what they want to do. And they can pressure you into doing it for them if they have to. Danger often thrills them. You often see these in the racers and this type of thing. And here again, you got someone that picks a partner with problems. They have a tendency to blame somebody else for their mistakes. I think one of the most charming incidents we ever had was one evening at the table. There were two other women and I used to get together all the time, and a third one joined us one night. And we were just sitting there talking, and I don't know what the conversation came up about. Husbands, we were discussing problems and so forth, and this one very blandly said a good solid Cancer with Mars retrograde, and she said, well, my husband and I wouldn't have any problems at all if he did just what I told him. And of course the other three of us fell on the floor laughing. She didn't think it was funny at all. She just sat there, she said, I don't know what you're laughing about, it's true. And it's wonderful. Oh, they blame somebody else, parents or whatever. They may even go for help, but they don't want it, really. They're often achievers. Don't forget you got a sub-pressure here. They go underground. Jupiter. What am I supposed to talk to? I don't even know. Jupiter himself is the land of opportunity, of course. Look how many aspects he makes. Look how many things he touches, and more than once. You follow me? And all these other things. He gives an opportunity for a successful career later in life when he is retrograde. Every one of you that Jupiter retrograde natally will have another opportunity, successfully usually, later in life.
Mine turned retrograde when I was 12. I thought it was a bad thing.
It's just the opposite. You always have to remember that. I was born with it, retrograde. It still is, and I used to be a buyer for 23 stores right here in Chicago. Now I'm an astrologer. Somebody'd ever told me that then, I'd have shot him. Jupiter gives an opportunity, always. And in the first house, it gives built-in protection. You're protected. Not necessarily. Retrograde, however, I think gives it a more spiritual content because you're going to look, you're kinder. You follow me? You're not quite as just ebullient as Jupiter usually is. I think you will feel things more inside. All right? Success can come in unusual ways. Failures, often apparent, can turn to successes with Jupiter retrograde. Is he the silver lining to the dark cloud? I've often wondered, you know. And success can be in a roundabout way or an unusual occupation or a source of luck. They're gullible. Jupiter retrograde's gullible, too. Can be generous and often to the wrong people. Retrograde. Jupiter is where we get our benefits, but retrograde, I don't think he makes it obvious too much to others. Keeps it a little more private. Saturn, acute, sensitive, stubborn, inner responsibility. He can appear flippant at times in attitude because of a fear of failure. Saturn is their security blanket. And they don't trust their security to anybody else. They're going to do it when Saturn's retrograde. According to Noel Till, as I remember, he sat in on the first Saturn class I had ever given, and he says, the relationship to the father is limited when Saturn is retrograde, or restrictive in some way. The father didn't help his self-esteem. Saturn and Venus, of course, you know, you're going to have a dislike of a commitment. So you follow me, you're always backing off. We look to Saturn often for the limitations or the problems of our lives. And you have to look to where you're keeping it within when Saturn's retrograde. You're keeping it inside of you, so look at the problem there. It'll be hidden. And we should try to help where we see Saturn retrograde. You know, to help people bring it out, to see where it is. And I call Saturn the lesson in life. So you've got to look at where it is. Like Neptune is often our responsibility. Saturn is where we look to where we can improve and maybe get a little less pain, or maybe, as I say, understand it. You're not going to get less. That's ridiculous. But at least understanding will take away the sharpness and leave the misery. Uranus, of course, these are thoughts. You know, what you're getting is this things from me. And Uranus retrograde that I've discovered, there are ideas and there are guns. How's that for a combination? And they dominate or run over other people. They're the reformers of the world, and we're going to change it. They often don't have feelings for others. I don't mean they're unkind, but see, you're going to change because they think it's right. You know, it may not be right for you, but they think so. So they use intellect to push ideas, to change the order of things. Retrograde, of course, is going to use an indirect force. It's, again, a pressure from another way. They're going to use ideas. I think Uranus is where we feel free to express ourselves, any place when we see him in the chart. And we often dominate others in this area. You've got to look at Uranus the way he is. He's dynamic. He's forceful. And where you see him is where we're going to run with the ball. Remember, it's a higher octave of Mercury. So it makes communication at a different level. Neptune. Here we are again with a higher octave of Venus. And what's Venus? What we want. Perhaps Neptune's what we seek spiritually, basically. But we're going to use the Venus thing to obtain it. And how many times have we gotten what we went after? And then you didn't want it because it wasn't so. It wasn't what you thought it was. This is Neptune retrograde. So they're often the experience of Neptune can be what we want to experience with. That's why I think the kids use drugs and all of these other things. Do you follow me? To have an experience that is bigger or more esoteric, spiritual, whatever word you want to use. And I think often they have, when they're retrograde, they often have a feeling of inadequacy, so perhaps this brings out more. They want instant personal proof. Have you ever noticed Neptune retrograde? Prove it to me. And they often are the ones, if you've ever noticed, that have direct contact with the Almighty, and so they have to prove it to you. You know, they're crusaders for man's well-being, social workers, charities, psychologists, civil rights, you name it. The retrograde is always concerned about other people's business and insists on helping them, whether they want it, whether they don't. All of the big ones are. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, the whole thing. Maybe in their highest form they're seeking approval from God. And maybe in its lowest form they're like the Pharisees. Just works and no love. Pluto. He's the destroyer of all the old. He's a loner. He's a higher octave of Mars. He's how we use our personal energy. Mars is. Sorry, I'm not being clear.